Hi friends, Swarza Brooks here. A lot of what I do in my ordinary life as a professor, as a teacher, is I talk to a lot of young people about happiness. Happiness is what I write, speak, and teach about it. And working with a lot of young people, I get to hear a lot of their concerns about building their lives, about starting out strong. And some people often ask me, what exactly do you tell them? What is the advice that you give them? Well, recently I had an opportunity to sit down with a student who has a project about happiness and just recorded our conversation. I thought you might be interested in the advice I was giving him based on the science of happiness and how it applies to the lives of young people and all the rest of our lives as well. So I hope you enjoy this conversation.
Oh, I'm Michael St. Amaro. I'm a sophomore at Langley High School in Virginia. And me personally, I've learned a lot from Arthur Brooks. And today I'm going to be asking him some questions regarding happiness, how to manage your emotions, and how to manage your work in school. So my first question, Arthur, is I learned a lot from your past, like your days in high school, but what is some of your advice on how to manage your general emotions? Because there's a lot of stress, a lot of things changing in your body as you grow up. So how did you personally manage your stress in high school and your emotions?
Well, hi, Michael. Nice to talk to you. And the answer is I did it poorly. I didn't do a good job. It was a different time, of course, because I was in high school a really long time ago. But there's one key thing that I didn't understand that I wish I understood and that everybody needs to understand, which is that if you're feeling stress and anxiety and sad sometimes, it's normal. It's completely normal. And the problem is that our world tells us that it's not normal and that we're kind of broken if we feel those things. This is a big problem with the internet and social media. You know, you see all these other people that are your age having a great time going to parties and out on hikes and, playing sports and everything is really great. And when you feel crummy, you think there must be something wrong with you because you're comparing yourself with the best kind of theater version of somebody else. So number one, what you see that other people are doing doesn't really reflect their real life. What's really going on is the same thing that's going on with you. And number two, there's nothing wrong with you for having negative emotions. Now, this is the second big point, which is that you need to have negative emotions. They're not bad. People always talk about bad feelings. There's no such thing as bad feelings. What we have is positive and negative emotions, and they exist because of evolution. They actually exist inside our brains so that we can react to the outside world in an appropriate way so that we actually don't get hurt. You need fear and sadness and anger and disgust, all those kind of negative feelings, because there's a lot out there that you need to be, as we say, averse to them. These are things that you really want to avoid. And your emotions are your early warning system for all that stuff. Now, they're really amped up when you're a teenager and when you're in high school and you're having all these experiences. But there's nothing wrong with having negative emotions, and there's nothing broken, and there's nothing strange. And these aren't things that you should be getting rid of, even if they feel pretty crummy.
Thank you. So you mentioned social media a little bit. My question is, how should kids manage social media? Because me personally, I've tried deleting those apps and I just feel so disconnected from my friends. Now, part of me feels relieved because I'm not constantly comparing myself. I'm not wasting as much time, but also feel a bit disconnected. So what's your advice on managing social media time use?
So the key thing to understand about social media is that it actually affects your brain the same way as drugs and alcohol. There's a chemical in your brain called dopamine, and that's stimulated when you do all sorts of things like drugs and alcohol and gambling and all these things, but also social media that gives you anticipation of reward. So when you want it, you almost crave it. You take the apps off your phone or you put your phone away and you don't have access to it. You're like, I want it. That feeling, there's nothing wrong with you. That's dopamine inside your brain saying, go get that thing that you're so accustomed to get your rewards from is the whole thing. So the problem is that, with drugs and alcohol, even if you're old enough to use them, even if you're under doctor's orders to use them, you shouldn't be using them all day long, right? That's first thing you wake up in the morning and you have a beer, have one with lunch, have 5 with dinner. That's a really dangerous way to do it. And that's how people are using social media. So there is a responsible way to use it so that the dopamine inside your brain doesn't make you go completely crazy, and you don't have to completely quit so you feel disconnected from your friends. The way to do it is to limit it to a certain period of time. And so what I recommend is, so that you can actually break the pattern, I recommend take the apps off your phone and take 2 weeks off of social media. Just 2 weeks. It's not, I'm not saying don't do it at all. That's kind of a cleanse, a sort of a social media detox that will literally change your brain chemistry so you're not quite as hooked. Then when you come back to it, set a time when you're going to look at it for half an hour across all the different platforms that you like. Some people like Instagram and TikTok. Some people like other stuff. If you're, you're kind of a weirdo, you like X, whatever it happens to be, whatever is your thing. In that half hour, that's when you look at it and then you put it away. So you have enough time to actually connect with your friends, but not so much time that is sprawling all over your schedule. And you're using that brain chemical to spritzing into your brain the whole day long. And so you're basically like a drug addict, and you don't want that kind of behavior because that'll paralyze you. It'll ruin your relationships in real life. It'll hurt your relationships in real life, and it'll take up too much of your time.
So my next question is kind of a deep question, but I know there's a lot out there. There's a lot of kids who aren't doing well in school, frequently feel upset about certain things because they simply don't understand. And they're just really confused on their aspect of life, right now. So what would you say long-term, maybe even short-term, they can do to get back on their path and to find their purpose in life?
To begin with, it's pretty normal if you're not doing well in school and not understanding a lot of things. Now, there's two reasons you're not doing well in school. One is that the classes are really hard and you don't really know what's going on because it's confusing. The other is that you're actually not doing the work. You're actually not doing the work to keep up with your classes. Those are two different things, of course. Now, usually when people are not keeping up with their classes, the reason is because they don't have a good structured, disciplined set of skills on how to keep up, how to use their time properly. And there's lots of people that can help you with that. There's lots and lots of tools that can actually help you budget your time better, et cetera. And if you want to do better and you want to use your time better, then find one of those tools. Get the advice you can get from your teachers, get the advice maybe from your parents, obviously from your school counselor on how to set your time up. There's also a lot of tools on the internet that can help with that. If it's just really hard what's going on, one of the things that's worth keeping in mind is that your life is not going to be ruined because you don't understand everything in school. I didn't understand that. When I was in high school and something was going really hard for me, I always thought like it's a catastrophe. If I don't get this, then it's going to turn into a bigger problem and I'm not going to have an opportunity here and I'm not going to get into the best college. And it was just terrible, right? It was this kind of catastrophic thinking. And parents make that worse all the time, Michael. Parents are always saying, if you don't get an A in this, you're not going to be able to get into that class. You're not going to be able to take that AP thing. And then you're not going to be able to get into the college that you wanted to go to. There's too much pressure along these lines. For a lot of kids, they should actually go work for a couple of years before they even go to college. Life is really long and one class is not going to create a huge problem. Now, you got to trust me on this because I teach at a college and a lot of people actually come to college when they're not ready and they don't really want to. And so it's important to be thinking, what does this class really mean to me? Will it really actually mess up my life if I don't do as well, if I get a B or even a C or something like that in the class? The answer is no. It's going to be fine. The stakes aren't nearly as high as your teachers and your parents and the internet and social media and everybody tell you. You got to take the pressure down a couple of notches.
So I wanted to touch back on that. A lot of parents at my school specifically, I'm sure every school around the country, just place a huge emphasis on grades, extracurriculars, so it can look good for college applications. But how do you really define success in a kid in high school? And how do you work up to that success point?
Yeah, success. I had to ask this question myself with my own kids when they were in high school. So my kid's a little older than you. My youngest kid is 20 at this point. But, I remember when one of my kids who was really kind of struggling in school, he wasn't very motivated. And I was just giving him a hard time all the time. You got to get better grades. You got to do your work. You're not going to have opportunities. And then I thought about it and I thought, what's really important to me for his success as a person? And the answer was, when I thought about it, I want him to be, I want him to follow our religion, but I want him to be compassionate with other people. I want him to be honest. I want him to treat other people with respect and dignity. Getting good grades was pretty far down the list for me, frankly. And so I actually told him that. And so one of the things that kids can do is you can go to your parents if they're giving you a lot of heat and say, look, what is most important to you about me and my life? Give me number 1, 2, and 3 that you would really make you proud of me as a person. And I hope it's not getting an A in math. I hope that's not your maximum point of pride in my life. I hope it's about me having a good life and treating other people with love and respect. And I hope it's that, and have a real conversation with your parents, because my guess is your parents haven't thought about their own priorities. With the thing that's the 5% most important is taking up 95% of the oxygen in the conversations with your parents. That's actually kind of a problem. And so changing that, kids can actually do that by pointing that out to their parents. And those of us who are parents need to be thinking a lot more clearly about what's actually important.
Thank you. So my next question, again, is kind of deep, and I don't think really there's an exact answer, but how do you really find your passions in high school? I know you don't necessarily have to find the exact one because you have tons of time in life, but how do you start to find things that you're interested in? Because a lot of kids, they'll go to school, they'll get whatever grade, they'll come home, they'll do a club, and that's kind of their life. And they'll have hobbies, but they don't have really a hobby that they can monetize in the future and that they really care about. So how do we start working towards that?
Yeah, no, it's worth pointing out that, it's interesting because when you graduate, you're going to have some graduation speaker at your high school, and they're going to say one of two things, right? Do what you love and you'll never work a day for the rest of your life. That's like, find something like super fun. Or they'll say, go change the world. Both of those are stupid pieces of advice, right? I mean, you're not, all these really successful business people, they're not having fun the whole time. Work isn't fun all the time. It just isn't. It's work. And that doesn't mean it has to be terrible. It doesn't mean you have to hate it, but it isn't going to be fun all the time. The key thing is to do lots and lots of different things. Take lots of different kinds of classes, read different kinds of books, watch YouTube videos on all sorts of different subjects, and see the stuff that actually hooks you. Because there's one or two things out there that you can just like, I just really love that. I think that's a really interesting thing. Maybe it's like you're really interested in psychology. Maybe you're really interested in physics. Maybe you're really interested in the arts and craft projects, that kind of thing. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to turn it into a job, but it will give you an idea of the things that are really going to interest you over the course of your life. Maybe you can work in that field, but maybe not. Maybe you just need to make a living so you can do fun things on the side. There's nothing wrong with that. We live in a country where that's possible. So in other words, don't worry too much if you don't actually know what your passion is. Make sure you're not living in this fantasy world that you have to do something that's going to be fun all the time. And don't worry about actually changing the world, because that's not a very good goal. Just do as many different varied things as you can, and to see actually what you find really interesting. And that's going to be your clue.
So another question, and this is about I guess kind of your social life, which I think is really important in high school. What types of relationships are important while you're in high school, and how do you get to those relationships? Because one thing I've noticed is a lot of people, they just don't date anymore. And a lot of people are stuck in certain friend groups. They don't really socialize with anyone else. So what would be your advice on what type of relationship is important to work towards? And then how do you get to those types of relationships?
Yeah, the most important thing is friendship, is real friendship. And friendship is most important in real life. So there's a chemical in your brain. It's called oxytocin. And this chemical in your brain is evolved to make us bonded to other people that will help take care of us. So if you go back 500,000 years, the humans would be living in these tribal groups, and they would get oxytocin when they had eye contact and touch with their friends and with their family. And that bonded them so that they would take care of each other. That's an evolutionary thing, is the way it works. Still today, it's very important that we get that chemical so that we can understand who our relationships are and really enjoy those relationships. When you're only looking at social media and only looking at screens, you're going to get a real deficit of that oxytocin. You're going to be very lonely and uncomfortable. Loneliness is largely a deficit of this oxytocin chemical. The only way you get it is with eye contact and touch. And that's what you need with your friends. Not good enough to be on platforms. So when you're around your friends, put down your phones. Always really, really important. When two friends are sitting together looking at their phones, they're wasting the opportunity to get lots of oxytocin in their brains, which will be the most satisfying kind of friendships. So that's the key thing to be thinking about. In real life, I'm looking you in the eyes. Zoom isn't as good. actually there's a bunch of interesting research on that shows that it doesn't work very well for oxytocin. And then making sure that you can actually, goof off together and play sports together and do these physical things together that really matter. That's the most important thing. And that's what a lot of young people are missing because of all the screen time.
So what if someone doesn't have a lot of friends? Like, how do they push themselves out of their comfort zone to maybe socialize with more people? And then how do they like kind of find their people that, they best bond with?
That's hard for a lot of young people, especially if they're having a bad time at school. School is where most young people make their social contacts, is the way that works. But it's not great for everybody. There's some people that are really introverted, or they have a social situation that's not good, that's not healthy. It can be, hostility or, trouble, or school. They can be even shunned. Young people in high school can be pretty cruel and pretty bullying in the way that they marginalize some people. Some people have really suffered from that. And that means you need to go to other situations to find your people. Maybe that's your house of worship. Maybe that's going to church or a synagogue or something. And for young people who are really lonely and having a hard time in school, one of the things that I recommend is they go to their parents and say, I want to go to the house of worship. Their parents can be like, what? We're not religious. Well, guess what? It's a really good thing to do because you're more likely to meet people that are more accepting, that are more open. If it's not that, then it's something in the community. You can play sports outside the school. There's sports activities outside of school for almost everybody. That was really good for my daughter. When she didn't feel like she had a lot of friends in school, she got involved in gymnastics outside of school. And she had some of her closest friends that she still hangs out with and talks to. She's 20. She hasn't been in gymnastics since she was 14. And those are really, really close friendships and relationships. Look outside to groups of people that accept you outside of the kind of the school cliquey environment. And if the social media is making the loneliness problem worse, getting off the social media from those people at school will really help that.
Yeah. So I have kind of a vague question here, but how do you manage like having a bad home life? So if you go to school and you go home every day and maybe there's an issue with your parents, maybe you live with a single mother, something like that. If you have a bad home life, if there's something you're upset about that you can't necessarily fix, what is your advice on how to deal with that and how to maybe even fix that?
Yeah, that's a hard thing that not every teenager can deal with. And that's kind of outside the range of what a lot of young people can manage. A really bad home life can be, obviously cases of abuse are different because that's the worst possible situation. But if it's tense or it's cold or, something like that, that can be a very hard thing to do. So one of the things that I recommend for a lot of young people is that you find an adult that actually you can talk to. Somebody who actually who does care about you, cares about your issues, cares about your feelings. Maybe that's a grandparent. Maybe that's somebody at school. Maybe that's a teacher. Maybe that's the parent of a friend. But it's really important that there be at least one person in your life who's older and who can actually listen to what's on your mind so that you're not, completely alone when it comes to the people that are more or less your parents' age.
So your 4 pillars are faith, family, friendship, and work. Obviously, if you're a teenager, you might not necessarily have work, but you have school, you have extracurriculars, maybe you have a part-time job. So for someone who knows basically nothing about these pillars, how do they incorporate that into their life?
Yeah, I've been studying happiness for a long time, and I look at the difference between the happiest people and the unhappiest people. And the big difference is that the happiest people, and I'm talking about adults primarily, but also teenagers, they're the ones who have 4 basic things going on in their life. Number one is we call it faith, and that doesn't necessarily mean religious faith. That can mean, they're studying something or thinking about, they're looking at something philosophically, they're thinking about, deeper, more spiritual things than just the little things that are going on every day. And so that means, figuring out some way to read more about spiritual life, more about philosophy, more about, kind of higher things, having conversations, watching videos about things that are a little bit more metaphysical and a little less about, the trivialities of every single day. That's really the way to do that. And so you're thinking about, the big things about the universe. By the way, maybe that's just like thinking seriously about the kind of music that's most beautiful and that just amazes you. Or maybe that's walking in nature. That's a good way to do it as well. There are lots of ways to do that. The second thing is is thinking about and working on family life. And, sometimes it's out of your hands. I mean, we've talked about this already, when family life is hard, but finding ways to cultivate those family relationships, those actually affect the brain in very specific ways that other relationships don't. So to say, I know family life can be hard, but figuring out ways to work on family life and make it a little bit warmer has a real payoff. Friendship, critical. And the key thing that is the barrier to friendship for teenagers today is too much screen time, because it's tearing us away from the eye contact and touch that we actually need. Sports is great. All kinds of things, the extracurriculars that you're doing, as long as you're not hanging out together and looking at your phones, you're going to get that friendship. You're going to get those deep bonds. And work, really what it is finding something meaningful in it. That can be hard when you're in high school. Sometimes it doesn't feel very meaningful at all. But looking for something in your work, either in school or out of school, that's actually meaningful, where you feel like you're doing something good and worthwhile. You're working for the future. You're learning something that you're going to use in the future. And especially if you can do something on the side that helps other people. This is one of the things that will make you happiest. I find that volunteering is one of the best ways to stop feeling lonely and start feeling better. So when you're feeling sad, go volunteer, go help somebody, go volunteer at a soup kitchen or, a food pantry, or, just do something for a friend who's in need. And that's the kind of work that really has the greatest sense of service and that gives you the greatest elevation in your happiness and the feeling of love in your life. And those four things together, when you're thinking about them, are really, really going to go a long ways to making happiness a lot higher in your life.